Gospel according to Mark. First consecrated announces Jesus. The Christian described Mark and John, co-worker of Paul and a partner of Peter, early church historian. Mark collected bare eyewitness account of testimonies, and Peter shaped it to this account and randomly threw the pieces, carefully designing in this book Mark the beginning of the good news about Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God. Interesting, the time Mark will tell you what he thinks is going to influence by Jesus' actions and showing how the people react to him. Mark designed the story at 3 acts. One first gets in Galilee, side of Jerusalem, and on the way to another place. The first act, the second act, third act. Then some are blown away by Jesus and they're wondering. Step 2, disciples struggle to understand what he means. And Act 3, the surprising paradox, how Jesus becomes king. See all that unfolds. No opening line, no quotation. Isaiah, Malachi, I will send a messenger before you to prepare the way of the Lord. As with people, and Mark, Baptist, John the Baptist, and it introduces Jesus. Heavens open, the Spirit descends on Jesus. You are my beloved Son. Mark plays Son of Chorus message. Now the good news, as someone has come near. All scriptures, but God rescued operation for the world through Jesus, and stirring this journey to offer the world by defeating evil, inviting under God's reign by following Jesus. A big block showing us how Jesus, God's kingdom, healing people, the sick and broken, the dark spiritual powers, and Jewish people, what we have the right to do, but Jesus takes away their sins, gets a deliverance response. Other people don't know what to think. Some other people reject him. And his readers accuse him of being empowered by the devil. Jesus doesn't care about his responses. Many parables about hysterical God's kingdom. And Jesus says, it's like a message of seed, like falling on soil. It's like a mustard seed. It seems insignificant, but it grows this huge tree. Jesus is the Messiah, but not the kind people expected. There's a lot of confusion about Jesus. It's a key idea. Then Act 1. And who is these disciples? And they're struggling. This who Jesus really is. Grows the conversation. Put the disciples aside. Who do you say I am? He says, you are the Messiah. So Peter says. And Jesus the victorious, Lion of David, rescuer from the Romans, the suffering servant, King what I will bring by giving up his life. Disciples, they say, they think following Jesus is going to be fame and status. And Jesus makes it clear, following Jesus is like dying. It's like putting in your own cross. It means rejecting violence and pride, and acts of others and love. His conversation with the disciples 2 more times. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to become a servant, and give his life as a ransom for many. Disciples don't get it still. Still get confusion, some fear. Another key story, the echoes. Jesus takes 3 of his disciples suddenly transformed, a light and glory in the clouds. It's just like God's glory on Mount Sinai and Exodus, and the two prophets who met God on Mount Sinai next to Jesus, Moses and Elijah. This is my beloved sons. In Act 2, like astounding claim, Jesus is God's son and embody of God's glory. And in Jesus, the glorious God suffering by dying for his people. It's a puzzling, confuses the disciples when they leave. In Act 3, Jesus makes a public entry to Jerusalem, Passover, and healing of the Messiah, enters the temple, and asserts his royal by running out the crooks, starts the sacrificial system, and debating what are you doing in Israel. And they set in motion and to get him killed. Jesus warns the disciples, Jerusalem's temples will be destroyed, and disciples, just like him, will bring God's kingdom and will return. At Last Supper, the Passover, a symbolic meal, story of Israel, liberation from the slavery from death, Passover. It's old symbols as a new meaning, a liberation from sin and death through the death of the suffering of Messiah. The story rushes forward when Jesus rests his trial, the priest and the Roman, all resulting as a crucifixion. The key scene and important scenes from Acts. It's darkness that sins. Instead of the divine, it's Jesus' voice that's crying out. It's almost surprising. A Roman soldier sees Jesus dies and then announces and who Jesus is. This man was the Son of God. For the person to recognize the story of the cross of Jesus' identity and crucified and Son of God and is the Messiah and died for his friends and his enemies. Jesus placed in a tomb. And a new week, disciples come to the tomb. The tomb is empty. An angelic man. Jesus isn't here. He is risen. Tell the good news to the other, and Jesus is alive. And he's back in Galilee. Women are freaked out. They fled from the tomb in terror, telling no one from were afraid. That's how the book ends. And the keen disciples concluded in Matthew and concluded to Mark, same conclusion. The ending of Mark has a little more conclusion to the ending. There's a little note there. It's not part of the original book. It's found later on the manuscripts. Or the manuscript probably got lost. Or was never finished. It's an abrupt ending. It's intentional. The entire story, the shocking claim, how Jesus uses disciples, the suffering, the crucified, who's the Messiah, and God's love, His upside down kingdom. As Jesus died, the story ends, and this forces you, the reader, make this claim about Jesus. Are you gonna recognize Jesus as Jesus, or you're gonna run away or recognize as he's the young king? And that's what Mark's all about.